Progress and Redefining School Reform and Transformation. The book represents the very best of what it means to learn from history to inform and understand current-day issues, perspectives, policies, and practices. In this powerful, analytic merging of history, policy, and practice, Fenwick engages issues of race, whiteness, and privilege, and as subtext, may make a case for reparations, as she conceptualizes how structures and systems have been developed to maintain segregation and an inequitable status quo. She invites listeners to learn about what has precipitated and sustained a troubling teacher and pedagogical, and principal, and leadership pipeline. In this way, her critiques and insights situate the historical, amplify voices of Black educators, and delicately propel conversations about justice and equity policy and practice. Drawing from an established body of scholarship and her own deep and robust analyses, Fenwick uncovers important connections between desegregation efforts and the current underrepresentation of teachers and leaders in schools. Indeed, Fenwick invites listeners to ask, what implications does history have for modern-day public schools, Black student achievement, education policy formulation, and diversity in the educator workforce, specifically teaching and school leadership? Thus, this is not only a book about history and desegregation. This is a book about the importance of history in our journey to deepen our knowledge to inform our practices about current-day educational efforts for justice and diversity. Jim Crow's Pink Slip offers much, perhaps most importantly, drawing from a deep and wide empirical database. Fenwick demonstrates how Black educators were exceptionally educated, well prepared to teach in segregated and desegregated schools. In this sense, Fenwick's work disrupts the lie that Black educators were somehow feebly qualified to teach and lead. To the contrary, as Fenwick details, Black educators had developed knowledge, skills, and capacities through both traditional credentialing mechanisms as well as non-traditional ones that often far exceeded those of their white counterparts. A transformative tool for those experienced and newer to education, this book adds an essential layer to the storyline about the reach and influence of Black educators pre- and post-Brown. Every educator, scholar, practitioner, community member, and policymaker concerned about racial justice inside and outside of education should listen to this book. This book teaches as it truth tells. H. Richard Milner IV, Cornelius Vanderbilt Distinguished Professor of Education, Vanderbilt University. Preface. I still remember that day. It was sunny and cold. Irritated by what I thought was a deficient lecture on the politics of education, after class I marched from Ramsayer Hall to Ackerman Library on a mission. My mind wasn't racing. It was dragging with the same persistent, wearisome internal dialogue I'd had with myself since elementary school. I'm tired of this, I thought. For God's sake, I'm a PhD student, and this is still happening. With all the abundant research resources on this campus, my professor can only conceive of Blacks through a lens of pathology and deficit? This professor was typical, not an outlier. Well-meaning as he believed himself to be, he began his opening lecture with a roster of statistics. You know the drill. Blacks are 80% of this and 90% of that. The this and that were all bad. I remember raising my hand and asking the professor if he thought that by providing naked statistics without any history or framing, he was reinforcing racist notions about Blacks. It seemed to me that of all places where discussion about the impact of the social, political, economic order would take place, a politics of education course would be among the foremost. At the time, I didn't know, and neither did the professor, that my question was a very loose paraphrasing of W.E.B. Du Bois in his study called The Philadelphia Negro. A slum is not a simple fact, it is a symptom, Du Bois wrote. To know the removable causes of the Negro slums of Philadelphia requires a study that takes one far beyond the slum district.